1 million UFO sightings are reported each year. Most can be debunked, but 5% remain unexplained. These are the close encounters.
Go see.
Betty Cash, Vicki Landrum, and her 7-year-old grandson, Colby, are hoping to play bingo.
I told you it'd be closed.
Oh, well, we'll try again next week.
All right.
Oh, kiddo. Come on, let's go.
But tonight, they're out of luck.
Hey!
You all right? You all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Come on, let's head on home.
They'd forgotten that it was the holidays. There were no bingo places open. They tried two. Neither one was open that night, and they gave up eventually and decided they were going to drive home. They were in what's called the Piney Woods area of Texas, and it wasn't well populated. They were driving on essentially a county road.
Are you sure you know where you're going, hon? Of course I do.
Grandma, what's that?
I don't know, honey.
As they were driving, they see something bright in the distance, low to the ground, through the treetops, that is hard to distinguish, you know, what this is. All they know is it's very bright.
It's a plane coming in.
They thought maybe this is just some ordinary aircraft that's approaching on a particular strange flight path, or perhaps taking a pass over the countryside.
Houston Intercontinental Airport was down south of them by maybe 30 or 35 miles, and there were some military and other facilities, you know, relatively nearby.
They drive for more than an hour along a dark road, but the object never leaves their sight.
Grandma!
Betty, that ain't no plane.
As they drove even closer, they saw this was definitely not an aircraft. It was a diamond shape of some sort, hovering just above the road.
Stop the car!
More unusual is what was coming out of it, these lightning bolts that seemed to radiate.
They may have been only 100 to 150 feet from it at that point. She thought about turning around.
Betty, let's go. I'm trying. It won't start.
They thought that perhaps the lightning was somehow interfering with the electrical system in the car because it seemed to be failing.
Hold on.
I'm trying.
The Cash Landrum sighting is one where the witnesses wanted to flee, and they couldn't flee because they were stuck on this narrow road. And the UFO wasn't going away, and they were in a stalemate.
Oh!
Whatever the cause, the engine is dead, and the 3 passengers are going nowhere.
They were in fear for their lives.
On a dark country road in Texas, Betty Cash, Vicki Landrum, and her grandson Colby encounter a mysterious diamond-shaped object. And it appears to stop their car.
It won't start!
This is actually quite common in some of the close encounter cases in UFO literature, where there seems to be vehicle interference caused by electrical fields, perhaps from some kind of magnetic fields. Cars and trucks and other vehicles are affected by the presence of a UFO. In some cases, the witnesses feel that they themselves were picked out of a crowd or selected for whatever reason.
Wait a minute, Betty. Wait a minute.
Like many people in Texas, then and now, Vicki Landrum was a very religious, a very devout Christian.
Maybe it's okay.
You think it's safe?
Yes, Betty. Yes, I do.
This was so dramatic that she thought that this might have been Jesus' second coming.
As the three witnesses gaze at the shape above them, the temperature seems to rise.
There is some heat coming off of the craft. Perhaps there was some microwave radiation coming off of this particular vehicle that was causing everything in the surrounding area to be increasing in temperature.
It continues to get hotter and hotter. Vicky runs back to the car, and when she tries to touch the door handle and open the car door, it's too hot.
Oh, get it.
She realized it wasn't Jesus. You know, she thought it was something else. Whatever that something else was, it wasn't God. Betty finally decides that I've got to get back in the car myself.
It's so hot in here.
The temperature inside the vehicle was almost like an oven.
Suddenly, it had a roaring flame coming out the bottom that was directed toward the ground and that wasn't constant. The craft rose into the air, still with this flame, and began to slowly move away into the distance.
As the craft leaves the area, the car's engine comes back to life.
When Vicky pressed her hand on the dashboard, she had to pull it away because it was very, very hot. It burned her hand, and it did, in fact, leave a mark suggesting that the vinyl was scorching hot.
Gosh, they're coming back.
When this object left, the witnesses described seeing up to a few dozen fairly large vehicles flying with it, perhaps escorting it somewhere.
There's so many of them.
They were more helicopter-like than anything else.
They seemed to be flying along with the UFO as it went into the distance, as if they were shepherding it, as if they were, you know, part of the whole entourage, as it were, flying away.
Was it a military operation, perhaps a secret operation, something that was classified and yet was accidentally seen by these three witnesses in a rural part of Texas?
Has there been any sign of a device like this that the U.S. government has developed? And the answer is no. There's no diamond-shaped craft like this. Why should we think that this was a secret government test vehicle then?
I don't know what's going on, Betty. Just get us out of here.
The three witnesses head for home as fast as they can. But the experience leaves a lasting effect. 4 days after the incident, Betty Cash is hospitalized with second-degree burns, severe nausea, and hair loss. Vicky and Colby Landrum report similar health problems, leading some experts to believe they'd been exposed to radiation. Investigators examine the dashboard imprint. For vinyl to melt, the temperature inside the car would need to reach 200 degrees Fahrenheit. The large object's apparent fire-burning engine suggests it could have been a rocket, jet aircraft, or hot air balloon. The witnesses later claim the smaller vehicles were military helicopters. But the U.S. Air Force officially denies they had any aircraft in the area that night.
He looked up and saw two disc-shaped objects. He was wondering what in heaven's name could this be.
Oh, good morning, Mr. Michalak. Getting an early start, eh?
Yes, sir. I'm hoping for some good ones today.
Pike or grouse?
Rocks.
Rocks?
Stefan Mikulak is on a weekend getaway in Manitoba's Whiteshell Provincial Park. The area is famous for its rich mineral deposits.
Stefan Mikulak is out to do some quartz prospecting because that oftentimes is associated with silver. I guess he was out to make a little bit of money, so he sets out to see what he can find.
I spoke with Stefan Mikulak on a number of occasions about this case. He had been an intelligence officer in the Polish army, and he was in the military in Europe for some time, and he immigrated to Canada with his family. He was not the type of person to make up stories. Mikulak told me that it was a typical spring day, very crisp, and it was sunny, and suddenly birds were flapping their wings. They were honking and very, very agitated. He thought maybe there was a bear in the area because there had been some bear sightings previously.
But over the next 2 hours, he sees no clear signs of any danger. He reaches his prospecting site and gears up for the job.
He needed some protection while he was chipping at rocks. He has some rubberized gloves to protect his hands while he's working. He has some welder's goggles. He looked up and saw two disc-shaped objects some distance up in the sky.
But then one of the crafts flew away.
And one of them starts descending. This object was about 150 feet away from him. Mikulak quickly realized that this was something out of the ordinary, but he wanted to get a better look. This was something that was clearly a craft of some kind. He was wondering what in heaven's name could this be? He was very dizzy. He felt very disoriented.
Stefan Mikulak goes into the woods to find precious rocks, but discovers something much more rare.
The object appeared to be of the order of about 30 feet in diameter. For someone to see an object of this kind at such a short distance in daylight is rather remarkable.
He, at this point, does not seem to be terribly concerned about his own safety.
Having been an intelligence officer in the Polish military, he had seen some things that would have made other people turn pale. He instinctively knew that, as a former military man, that this probably had a reasonable explanation. Perhaps this was some sort of American secret weapon that was perhaps broken down.
Hello?
He called out to whoever was inside this craft.
Yankee boys, come on out.
I'll give you a hand fixing your broken down flying machine.
But there's no reply from inside.
He thought perhaps this was not an American craft at all. Maybe they're Russian or from some other country. And since he was multilingual, he called out in a number of languages.
We говорите на русском. Polsko.
But no reaction came from inside this particular craft.
He taps into his military training and decides to document every detail.
He had this pad of paper with him, and he took it out to sketch the object.
Very few witnesses would have the presence of mind to actually do a sketch. All of a sudden, he sees a hatch door open.
And it didn't open like a regular door. It seemed to iris open like a camera lens. He started hearing some voices coming from the inside of the object. He couldn't quite make out what the voices were saying.
And that probably piqued his curiosity even further.
The iris shut abruptly in front of him. The entire craft shifted. Some sort of exhaust vent or grill was directly in front of his body. The compass needle was spinning wildly. Perhaps there was some sort of magnetic residual effects from the object being so close to him. The object took off vertically into the sky. Michalak realized that he had to get some help. When he was describing to me how he felt at the time, he was saying that he was very, very dizzy. He had a headache. He was nauseous. He was in intense pain in the upper body. He had to go back to civilization, but he felt very, very disoriented.
Mr. Michalak! Oh my God!
He was found to have second and third degree burns on his upper chest. The red spots corresponded almost exactly with the shape of the exhaust vent.
This particular case would certainly come into the realm of one of the best in terms of its physical evidence that it offers.
Michalak is taken to a hospital. His burns cover a 20-centimeter wide area of his body. He suffers from exhaustion, severe headaches, and nausea, all classic symptoms of acute radiation poisoning. After concerns about public safety are raised, the Royal Canadian Air Force begin to investigate. At the site, they discover a 15-foot diameter circle of worn grass, where Michalak claims he saw the object. Further analysis reveals traces of radiation inside the circle, but nowhere else in the area. When a radiologist later examines Michalak and his clothing, he finds no trace of radiation. A forest ranger, stationed at a fire tower less than a kilometer away, reports seeing no sign of any craft that day. The strange marks on Stefan Michalak's abdomen continue to appear and disappear right up until his death in 1999. 1 million UFO sightings are reported each year. Most can be debunked, but 5% remain unexplained. These are the close encounters.
JL 1628 Heavy, Anchorage Center. Proceed to Talkeetna, heading 215.
On a routine flight, Captain Kenju Taruchi and his Japanese airline crew make their way towards Anchorage, Alaska to refuel. The 747 is only halfway to its final destination.
It was a flight from Paris to Tokyo. It was a freighter. It had a shipment of wine on board. A large shipment, obviously, in a 747. Captain Taruchi was a very experienced pilot. He was an ex-fighter pilot in the Japanese Air Force. Many thousands of hours of flying time.
Captain Taruchi cruises at nearly 1,000 kilometers an hour. The night is fairly clear. No storms in sight. But at precisely 5:11 p.m., something catches his eye.
He looks out through his window and he sees something that doesn't look right. And the first thing he's thinking of is it's something that shouldn't be there. Then it disappeared.
あなたはそれをキャッチしたのですか? おそらく宮殿からの戦闘機だろう。
Because Alaska is only 100 kilometers from the Soviet Union, the airspace is under constant patrol by U.S. Air Force jets. The object suddenly reappears. Captain Taruchi worries that it will penetrate his airspace and possibly trigger deadly turbulence.
Every airplane owns a block of airspace, 10 miles long, 5 miles wide, and in this case, 2,000 feet thick. It's like a big shoebox. And if anybody gets inside or too close to that box of airspace, it could suck the 747 into his wake.
And quite literally tear a wing off.
But the object disappears once again.
Anchorage Center, JL 1628. Do you have any traffic at 11 o'clock above?
JAL 1628 Heavy, Anchorage Center.
Negative. Air traffic control doesn't have another airliner in the mix.
Captain Taruchi tries to pick it up on his weather radar.
He sees this big blob that's moving toward him. Coming after you. You gotta do something to get out of the way. Save yourself.
Anchorage, Anchorage Center, JL 1628. We have inside traffic in front of us about 1 kilometer.
JAL 1628, can you identify the aircraft?
He knows in the back of his mind that nobody believes in UFOs, so he's trying to talk about what's there without saying what's there.
We cannot identify the type, but we can see the navigation lights.
The controller calls the Elmendorf U.S. Air Force Base, just outside Anchorage.
The first thing that a controller thinks is that the military must be flying in the area.
No, sir. All flights grounded since 1600 hours.
And they say, no, they don't have anybody up, so it's not one of theirs. Now, all of a sudden, the object seemed to have disappeared.
Kalelawa, kakulateiru.
The Japanese pilot was questioning what it was doing.
Maybe they just turned their lights off. Who knows?
Then, as they near Fairbanks, Alaska, Captain Terrucci gets his first full look at the craft that's been following them.
This thing was immense.
It's 4 times the size of an aircraft carrier. In his mind, he says if that craft gets too close to us, it's gonna flip us over and we're gonna die.
It literally has to scare the crap out of a pilot.
He's worried about staying alive.
The crew of JAL 1628 believe they've spotted a strange object over Alaska, 4 times bigger than an aircraft carrier.
Aircraft carrier is a city. They can have 12,000 people on an aircraft carrier, and figure there's 4 of them.
As the object hovers ever closer, the crew is forced to deal with increasing turbulence.
Seeing something that huge alongside of you, you know, it literally has to scare the, you know, the crap out of a pilot.
Request heading 240.
Captain Terrucci decides to put some space between them and the mysterious object.
Anchorage Center.
Requesting object heading 2.
The pilot requested to change his altitude, and it's coming in broken.
JAL 1628, you're coming broken. Say again.
The crew can't change their course without approval from air traffic control.
Requesting object 240.
Understood. Requesting flight level 310. Descend at pilot's discretion.
The controller checked to see if there's anybody else underneath him, and he says, no, you can go down to 31,000. But the damn thing stayed right with them. He doesn't know what else he can do. He's worried about staying alive.
The controller calls for an unusual maneuver.
JAL 1628, I'm going to request you make a right turn, 360-degree turn. Advise me what your traffic does.
He's thinking that if this aircraft is following him and that he makes a big circle, that this guy will go on his way and it won't bother him anymore.
Takes probably 5 or 6 minutes to make that complete turn all the way around and then come back on course again.
Nanimo.
For the first time in over 20 minutes, the crew can finally relax. But seconds later, the mysterious craft is back.
The thing followed them all the way around the turn.
JAL 1628.
Primary target behind you in trail. In trail. I say again. Can you see it?
As the object draws close, the crew is hit with more turbulence. The air traffic controller has no way to identify the strange craft in his airspace.
JAL 1628. I'm going to get you out of this.
He contacts an approaching airline to help him investigate.
UA-69 Heavy, this is Anchorage Center. Come in.
The controller realized there was somebody out there. They had the United 69 coming up from the south. So the controller says, can we deviate you a little bit? We've got a 747 up here that thinks he's being followed by another aircraft or something. And the United said, fine.
For safety reasons, the passenger plane only pulls to within 20 kilometers of the JAL 747.
Hold tight, I've got someone coming by.
UA-69 Heavy, we've got the Japan airliner in sight, but I don't see anybody around him.
He couldn't report seeing the object that Tarochi was seeing.
JAL 1628, can you see?
The crew of JAL 1628 report that they too can no longer see the object.
The 747 descends and lands. Nothing else happened, and he's probably happy to be on the ground.
If there was a primer around for UFO reports for pilots, JAL would be ranking up there as one of the best.
On landing, John Callahan immediately interviews the JAL crew. All 3 crew members provide similar reports of what they saw. That report appears to be backed up by radar data from the Elmendorf U.S. Air Force Base. They confirm that a very large craft was spotted that night near JAL 1628. But a group of UFO skeptics later issues a press release claiming the crew saw Jupiter and Mars. Another theory suggests that the strange lights were reflections of moonlight in clouds filled with turbulent ice crystals. However, all weather data for that evening indicates a clear sky with good visibility.
Dispatch, car 407, proceed with caution.
He heard a cracking sound, and that's the last he remembers.
Broad and Wall, Scooter, Broad and Wall. Bravo 1 in your first time and holding around number 30 Broad Street, 1022.
13 Sergeant 1 Essential.
15 Sergeant 1
Marshall County Police? What's your location? All right, stand by. Patrol car is en route. Northbound 220. Suspicious activity reported. Multiple vehicles. Smugglers? Looks like it. On my way.
Deputy Val Johnson heads out to Highway 220 in northern Minnesota in pursuit of possible drug traffickers.
The Val Johnson case has lots of factors that make it stand out as a very distinctive event, and a distinctive event that says that something unusual happened to Officer Johnson.
Dispatch, car 407, proceed with caution. Maintain radio contact.
Dispatch 407, roger.
The credibility of the witness is very important. Val Johnson was a police officer. When people come forward who are solid citizens in the community, that adds some good evidence to suggest there really was something there.
Heading west, approaching Highway 220 now. Will advise.
Copy that.
When he radioed to the station, he noted the time, and the station officer noted the time as well, and that would have been critical in trying to assess what happened next. He was driving on one of the small backcountry roads and noticed a light slightly over the trees some distance away.
407 dispatch. Listen, Greg, I've got a possible aircraft low on the horizon. Could be a Cessna dropping their cargo. I'm gonna go check it out.
Copy that, 407.
Deputy Johnson only has a few minutes before the smugglers drop their cargo and take off again.
He accelerates to a high speed, he thinks about 65 miles an hour, and tries to get closer to this thing.
What the hell is that?
There was something odd about it. It didn't have some of the flashing lights associated with normal aircraft.
That's not a plane.
In the Val Johnson case, everything seems to have happened at once. And as he gets closer, that's when everything goes haywire.
What started as a police investigation is about to become something altogether different.
This light was definitely destined for him.
While patrolling the backroads of northern Minnesota, Deputy Sheriff Val Johnson spots a strange light in the sky.
And at this point, he could see it wasn't a plane because it was this bright, very bright thing. It didn't have the running lights like a plane, and so he was beginning to realize that this was something unusual that he was witnessing.
He was wondering what in heaven's name could this be?
Whatever Johnson is chasing suddenly makes a sharp turn.
The light comes right at him. He heard a cracking sound, and that's the last he remembers. He was unconscious for several minutes.
Val was very, very confused and wondered exactly what had happened to him. He had no idea.
His eyes were all fuzzy, hard to see.
He was suffering from welder's blindness, as if he had looked at a very, very brilliant source of light.
Johnson's ribs are badly bruised, and he has a concussion.
He was wondering, where did that light go? What am I doing here? How come the windshield is cracked?
Dispatch. I don't know how to explain it. Something hit my car.
His police instinct kicked in. He immediately radioed for help.
Are you hurt, Deputy?
Banged up a little. I'll survive.
Hang in there, Deputy. Time is now 2:33 a.m. We're on our way.
Of all the peculiarities in the case, perhaps the most peculiar is that not just the dashboard clock, which was electronic, was running 14 minutes slow, but Johnson's wind-up wristwatch was also running 14 minutes slow.
Some people have said that UFOs can affect their environment with electromagnetic fields or waves, but we don't know why both an electrical system in a vehicle and a personal wristwatch might have both been slow by the same amount. It was just a matter of minutes before other police officers arrived.
Can you describe the other vehicle?
It wasn't a vehicle, Greg.
The object was gone, the light was gone. Whatever hit Val Johnson's car came from nowhere and then disappeared. This certainly wasn't a simple hit and run unless it was a simple hit and run by an unidentified flying object.
Police immediately begin an investigation into the crash. All evidence is carefully analyzed. The damaged police car is examined by a team of engineers. They conclude it was struck by some kind of man-made vehicle. Some investigators suggest that Johnson may have collided with a stray, low-flying airplane. Others theorize that the vehicle could have been hit by lightning. But no explanation was ever found for why Johnson's car clock and wristwatch were running 14 minutes behind after the incident. The final accident report concludes that Johnson's squad car sustained damage from an unknown origin.